Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. This final point is for Parkland student David Hogg, who shared with the entire world via TMZ that he'd been rejected from 4 colleges, including UCSD and UCLA. Now, David, I want to talk directly to you because I think somebody needs to be a little blunter with you. There have been people who have told you why your demands for gun control, for banning so-called assault weapons, for legalizing high-capacity magazines, basically for demonizing firearms, why that won't actually work. You've already been told criminals don't care about the law, so restricting our Second Amendment right to bear arms will just deprive law-abiding Americans the ability to exercise our constitutional right and defend ourselves. And it will result in criminals being the only people with guns. You've already been told that firearms are used 80 times more often to save a life than to take one. You've already been told that none of the legislative proposals that you've been pushing would have actually stopped Nicholas Cruz from waging his attack. But if the FBI, the Broward County Sheriff, and the school district had done their jobs, they most likely could have prevented the attack. You've already been told that 98.4% of mass shootings take place in gun-free zones, yet our politicians, especially Democratic politicians, continue to support that dangerous policy. You know all this. I don't need to reiterate it more. You also know what it's like to be unfairly targeted, to be punished for the wrongdoing of somebody else. You're being forced to wear a clear backpack to school, and you don't like that. I get that. Although I do hope you notice how silly it is to claim that your rights are being violated for somebody else's bad behavior because you're being forced to wear a clear backpack, yet you're advocating for our right to bear arms be diminished and violated because of somebody else's bad behavior. Either way, I don't want to talk about you or your politics. I want to talk to you about college, and then what's wrong with your behavior. Now, this may come as a surprise, but whether or not you go to college, it doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to do just fine. You're going to be successful. Colleges these days have lost their way. Universities are no longer beacons of higher education that teach critical thinking, encourage exposure to new ideas and viewpoints, and host hearty, healthy debates. Not anymore. Colleges in America have now devolved into cesspools of liberal ideology, so narrow-minded that you can get thrown out of class or have your grades docked just for saying there are only 2 genders. Basic biology. David, don't waste your time, don't waste your money, but don't neglect to educate yourself. David, you have an incredible platform right now. Don't get caught up in the fame and the glory of being on TV that you forget to think. Don't ride the waves of partisanship to the point where you think it's okay to call Republicans sick effers and claim millions of law-abiding American gun owners have the blood of children splattered on their faces. David, that is not okay. More importantly, it's not accurate, and I think you know that. Don't let yourself be brainwashed by the leftist organizations who are feeding your fuel to continue maligning Republicans and the NRA and gun owners to the point where you were trying to kick a conservative off the air because she said you whined about being rejected from 4 colleges. Now, you didn't whine. I saw the video. You just stated it as a matter of fact. But David, do you want to be treated like an adult, or do you want to be treated like a child? Do you want us to take you seriously and consider your policy proposals, or do you want us to just nod our heads and say, oh yeah, thank you, David, and then pat you on your head and send you on your way? You can't have it both ways. Either you're an adult, and we treat you like an adult, or you're a child, and we treat you like a child. If you're a child, we won't criticize you, but we're also not going to take you seriously. If you're an adult, your ideas should be and will be roundly criticized. Now, we both know what the correct answer is here. It's condescending to be treated like a child, and I don't think you want to be treated like a juvenile anyway. The way you're behaving right now, you're play acting at being an adult. You're demanding the privileges, yet you're rejecting any of the responsibility. My point is, if you have a problem with ad hominem attacks, don't hurl ad hominem attacks. Don't call Republicans sick effers. Don't call the NRA murderers. Don't blame Dana Lash and the millions of law-abiding gun owners in America for the Parkland shooting. Don't call anybody who disagrees with your ideas bleepy people. And if you do any of that, don't even pretend to be outraged when you get some personal attack in return. It's wrong both ways, but don't be surprised. When you organize a boycott of advertisers on a show just because the host said you whined about being rejected from college, it looks to us, David, like you're trying to stifle the opinions of anybody who disagrees with you. If you believe your opinions are right, do you believe your opinions are right? Then defend them. Don't try to shut up your opponents. That just makes us think that you don't have a defense, and it makes us worried that after you try to violate our Second Amendment rights, you're going to come after our First Amendment right to free speech. David, I'm a millennial too. Do what I do. If there are people who disagree with me on any issue, debate them. Invite them to argue with you, and then argue like an adult. You don't have to go to college to learn how to do that. You don't have to go to college to educate yourself. Some of the very best things that I know I didn't learn in college. I learned by reading books, by studying history independently, and by debating those with different viewpoints instead of trying to silence them. Silencing somebody because you disagree with them is wrong, and you would rebel if somebody tried to do that to you. David, it's time to grow up, to stop acting entitled to a safe space, stop acting like a snowflake anytime somebody criticizes you, and start advocating for the freedom that you are lucky enough to possess. If you do that, I promise you will have more success in life than any college education could ever teach you. And that's my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you like the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.